Initially today, it was clearly the government's intent to detain Mr. Howard. Did you expect the defense to put up such a fight?
Well, I think any defense lawyer will do the best that he can for his client. Certainly, you saw that displayed in the courtroom today, but the government prevailed. Mr. Howard is detained, and that was the right result.
Based on the evidence, it seems to be a solid case. Everything appears to be buttoned up. You not only have the evidence, but you have video and audio evidence to accompany that. I mean, where do you see a case like this going from here?
Well, we always prepare for trial. We take nothing for granted ever. We will continue to investigate this case. Should the case proceed to trial, we will try this case in this courthouse.
When do you expect the trial to take place? How long will he be detained before the trial happens?
Well, there are other actions that have to be taken. The grand jury has to meet. So it would be inappropriate at this time to comment on when the trial would be.
Possibly within a year. Can you give us an estimate, though?
I would say probably, most likely, 6 months.
When is the next possibility that he might be able to get bail or get a bond or something along those lines? Would that come after the grand jury?
Once a defendant is detained, he is usually detained throughout the course of the proceedings. Of course, defense counsel can always try to reopen a detention hearing, but for the time being, he is detained in federal custody.
What was your reaction to the back and forth between the judge and defense counsel in this case? Are you used to seeing something like that, or was it out of the ordinary?
That's not appropriate for me to comment on. I'm sorry.
Were you surprised at the judge seemed, he called him a rapist, an alleged rapist, and that he preyed on women and used the substance to do so. The judge seemed very angry at the defendant today.
Well, again, that's not something that would be appropriate for the U.S. Attorney's Office to comment on.
What would you like to say about the character of this defendant and what you've seen so far based on the evidence against him?
Well, I think the evidence really speaks for itself. I will tell you this. Our society cannot tolerate the abuse of its women. Our community cannot tolerate the abuse of its daughters. And I will tell you this. Every single investigator assigned to this case will not tire and will not falter to find victims in this case. And we ask that anyone who believes that they have been dosed or that they have been abused to call the Auburn Police Department and report that, because we will find the scope of this case.
What do you think is your strongest piece of evidence?
That's hard. All evidence is taken in the aggregate. There is no single piece of evidence that is overwhelming, but I think once you look at the entirety of the case, we feel that our case is strong. But again, we'll let the evidence speak for itself in court.
Could you speak to the importance of the 2005 11th Circuit ruling, I think you said it was 2005, that classified this chemical as an analog of GHB?
Well, at trial, the government would expect to present various experts that would talk about analogs, that would talk about what 1,4-butanediol does. And so there has been an 11th Circuit case that we feel is helpful as we would present that evidence at trial.
Do you think it's strong enough to replace an expert, or?
No, the government will always be held to its proof. We have to prove each and every element of the crime. We will have experts at trial, should it go to trial, and we'll present the evidence as we're required to.
Obviously, you believe he is a danger to society, and you're pleased that he has been detained. Can you talk a little bit more about why you think he's a danger to society?
I think the evidence that was presented in court today with the various things that he said to the undercover about what he would want to do to women, the fact that he has firearms, he was willing to display those firearms. It's clear that if you were in the courtroom and you heard what he planned to do, that he is a danger to the community, and he's a danger to the women and daughters of our community.
How much of the fact that he admitted during the undercover video that he'd done this at least 3 to 4 times before?
Again, all of those things taken in the aggregate are important. There's not one single piece of evidence that we rely on. But if you were in the courtroom today, I believe you would come away with the distinct understanding that he is a danger to our community, and he is now detained, and we will do everything to keep him detained.
Just to clarify, though, there's no witnesses that come forward, no women that you guys think have been victims of this drug that he's distributed?
It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on that point. This investigation is still ongoing.
But, sir, based on the charges, it's distribution right now and having a firearm during the commission of a transaction. He's not charged with any type of sexual assault or rape at this point. Could those charges come
It would be wrong for me to speculate on what might come later. This investigation is still ongoing.
So you're not saying that couldn't happen later?
I'm just saying that I won't comment at this time on what could come later.
And right now he doesn't face those charges?
He is not charged with anything like that at this point.
Do we have any detail other than a woman in Montgomery and a woman in New Orleans concerning those threats? Are there any names? I mean, not that you would give them at this point, but are they known entities at this point?
And again, I apologize, but this is an ongoing investigation. What we want to do is encourage anyone who believes that they have been victimized to come forward and call the Auburn Police Department.
Just one more question for you. When you hear that he wanted to shave someone's head Nazi style, use a knife, what is an X-Acto knife, to carve and then use ink to tattoo them, when you read that or when you heard that, he had that conversation with an undercover, correct?
That's correct.
When you heard that, what went through your mind?
That, again, that the U.S. Attorney's Office and that all the investigators assigned to this case need to go out and find and detain Mr. Howard, that we need to uncover the scope of this case, and we need to continue investigating this case so we can make sure that will never happen to anybody.
Was he working with anybody to get these chemicals? Any other arrests in the pipeline?
It just wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment about that.
And you may not be able to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because that's what we do. Were the chemicals, were they taken from the university?
Again, at this point, I can't comment on some of the specifics outside of what we talked about in court today.
What's your reaction to the defense saying that him talking to that UC, the way that he was talking to him was just blustering? It was just him sort of bragging. Well, what do you think about that?
Under the Constitution of the United States, everyone is guaranteed a right to a defense. The defense counsel in this case is trying to defend his client to the best of his ability. That is his defense strategy. We have our obligation, which is to pursue justice, and that's what we're going to do.